You know, the internet we use every single day feels like it's just always been this way, but it's constantly changing. And right now, we're standing right on the edge of its next big evolution, Web3. And look, this isn't just another update. It's a complete reimagining of how the web should work, born directly out of the problems with the web we use today. All right, let's get into it.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with a quick history of the web's evolution. Then we'll zero in on the big problem with today's internet. After that, we'll unpack what the Web3 revolution is all about, pop the hood on how it actually works, and finally get real about its incredible promise versus its current messy reality.
You can't really get where we're going until you understand where we've been, right? The story of the web kind of plays out in 3 big chapters, a journey that's taken us from just being passive readers to becoming active owners in our own digital lives.
So first up was Web1. Think of the early, kind of clunky internet of the 90s. It was mostly static pages, and we were just there to read stuff. Then, around 2004, Web2 exploded onto the scene. This is the social, interactive web we know today, packed with content made by us. And now, something new is taking shape, Web3, an era that's really just beginning to find its feet.
And this is where it all starts to click. In Web 1, we were basically just consumers on a read-only internet. Web 2 turned us all into creators in a read-write world. But the huge promise of Web 3 is to add that final, game-changing piece, read-write-own. It's all about changing our role from being just a user or even the product to being an actual owner.
But here's the thing, that super dynamic, user-generated Web 2 that we all use and, let's be honest, kind of love, well, it came with a pretty steep hidden price tag. The cost for all that free stuff was centralization, and that created a really fundamental issue.
We all became creators, right? We uploaded our photos, our thoughts, our videos, but here's the catch. We never actually owned any of it. Huge platforms hosted it all for us, supposedly for free, but the trade was that they got to collect, analyze, and sell our data, mostly to advertisers. Our creativity, our lives, that became their product.
This statement just perfectly captures the central paradox of Web 2, doesn't it? We got all these amazing tools to build and share and connect, but we were building on someone else's land. The ownership, the ultimate control always stayed with a small handful of massive companies.
And this model has some very real-world consequences for all of us. Because these platforms own the servers and the data, they can censor what you say or even kick you off entirely whenever they want. Their giant data centers become these massive, juicy targets for hackers. And when it comes down to it, we have shockingly little control over our own digital identity. And all of that's what brings us to Web3. It's not just a new set of technologies, it's a completely different philosophy. It's a real attempt to write a new digital social contract, one that tries to fix the massive power imbalance of Web 2.
So what is it really? Well, at its heart, Web3 is a vision for a decentralized internet that's built on blockchain technology. The number one goal? To take the power, ownership, and control that's been hoarded by a few giant corporations and hand it back to the individual users, to us.
See, it all circles back to this simple, powerful idea. Web 1 let us read, Web 2 let us write, Web 3 is all about adding that missing critical piece, ownership. You don't just create value for the network, you get to own a piece of the network itself. This is a massive shift in how we think about trust online. In Web 2, we have to place our trust in institutions, in banks, in tech giants, and governments. We trust them to do the right thing. Web 3 wants to replace that with trust in code, transparent, verifiable code that runs on a blockchain and does exactly what it says it will do. No middleman needed.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the why. Now it's time to get into the how. What's the actual engine powering this new vision for the web? It really boils down to a few key technologies all working together in a pretty cool way.
And it all starts with the blockchain. The simplest way to think about it is like a shared digital notebook. But here's the key. No single person or company owns it. Instead, it's maintained by a massive global network of computers, which makes it incredibly secure and transparent. It's the bedrock of trust for this whole system.
So, how does a transaction actually get on there? Well, first, someone starts a transaction. It gets bundled up with others into a new block. Then the whole network has to vote and agree that this block is valid. That's called consensus.
Once it's approved, it's mathematically linked to the block before it, creating a chain. And then that update is sent out to every computer on the network, making it permanent and almost impossible to change.
Now, living on top of that blockchain, you have smart contracts. These are the rule keepers. They're just little bits of code that automatically run when certain things happen. A really easy way to think of them is as automated if-then statements. If this happens, then that automatically happens. No lawyers, no escrow, no middlemen. The code is the law.
And finally, you've got tokens. These are the native assets of Web3. They come in two main flavors. Some are fungible, which means they're all identical and interchangeable, just like a dollar bill. But others are non-fungible. You've heard of these, NFTs. Each one is totally unique and can represent ownership of anything from digital art to a concert ticket to an in-game sword. Okay, time for a serious reality check. The vision for Web3 is, without a doubt, transformative, but the road from where we are now to that mainstream future, well, it's full of some pretty massive challenges. We have to look at both sides of this.
The promise is just huge. I mean, imagine truly owning your own data and identity. Imagine a world where anyone with an internet connection can access financial services. A world with platforms that can't be censored by a single company or government. A world where you can build something new without having to ask anyone for permission first.
But, and this is a big but, there's a massive technical hurdle called the scalability trilemma. Basically, it says it's almost impossible for a blockchain to be decentralized, secure, and super fast all at the same time. You have to pick two. And most early blockchains chose decentralization and security, which means they are often painfully slow.
And to really see what that means, just look at the numbers. A system like Visa can handle something like 24,000 transactions every second. Ethereum, one of the biggest blockchains, its main network can handle about 15. Yeah, 15. That's a huge bottleneck. Now, the good news is people are building solutions on top of it called Layer 2s that are way, way faster. But we're still not there yet.
And that's not all. The user experience right now, it's often really complex and totally unforgiving. If you lose your crypto keys, there is no forgot my password button. It's just gone. Plus, governments are still trying to figure out how to even regulate this stuff. And a lot of the apps being built can have security holes. These are serious roadblocks to getting everyone on board.
Which leaves us with this massive question. Is Web3 really the beginning of a better, fairer, more user-owned internet, a totally new digital social contract? Or is it an incredible piece of technology that's still searching for the killer problems that it's uniquely built to solve for billions of people? Right now, the answer to that is still being written.